And welcome to this next installment of the EV Bids podcast. I'm Tory Hornsby with EV Bids. Here I have with me Rod Stuckey. How's it going, Rod?
It's going great, Tory. Good to be here.
Awesome. Today we have a good subject I feel that is going to be very informative to a lot of people. And we're going to talk about vehicle history reports and how they impact a car's value. So just diving in here, taking it from the top. For those who don't know, Rod, can you tell us, like, what is a vehicle history report? What do we mean by that?
Well, simply put, a vehicle history report is the story. It tells the story of the history of that vehicle, and that story can start all the way at the top with what is the history of the title. Has it been in any accidents? Has it had recalls? How many owners has it had? What are the odometer readings? So yeah, it's just a tells the story of that vehicle.
And I think a lot of people know the term CARFAX. There was a lot of advertising television in the past of, get the CARFAX. And so that is a vehicle history report. And there's two other ones. What are they, Rod?
Yeah, CARFAX was kind of first on the scene, back in the 80s. That's hence, I mean, literally it was being done by fax. And so they're kind of the generic, call them the Coca-Cola or the Coke or whatever. But yeah, you've got AutoCheck, who's another big player, and recently Bumper has come on board. There may be some other smaller players out there, but essentially it's a pay to play. So when you see a vehicle history report, in fact, CARFAXs are quite expensive, like $40 or something, and then you can pay in bulk. And so, but most dealerships will offer the CARFAX to their customers on the listings. Now, if you're doing a private party sale, it's definitely worth it to pay for that history report. I kind of look at it as an analogy, just like if you were buying a piece of real estate, you would never buy a piece of real estate without doing the title work on it to ensure that there's, that you're not buying something that has liens against it. And so it's super important that you get a vehicle history report on an automobile, just like you would any real estate, to ensure that there are no unexpected surprises.
So I've got on the screen here, I'm sharing my screen, and this is an AutoCheck report, which is, you can see Experian in the corner. It's powered by Experian data. But just covering the categories, you can see there's an AutoCheck score. This is their scoring it based on if there's anything wrong. It gives you what the average is for that vehicle, and then scores it based on if there would be something that they have identified in the history that should be checked into. So looking at the categories that they cover here on the average vehicle history report, the very first thing is, this is a big topic, and we don't have time to go into all the details of a branded title. But Rod, can you cover what is a branded title?
So a branded title is essentially a legal disclosure about the history of that vehicle that quote brands that title. You could have different types of branded titles here in the state of Georgia are flood damage, rebuilt title, salvage title. There's the manufacturer buyback, as we also know, the lemon law.
Yes.
That's a branded title. There's a bonded title, a court order, and then there's a odometer discrepancy, also known as not actual miles. So, surprisingly, in the EV space, it's remarkable how often you see branded titles. So while you might think this is a little bit of an outlier, it is not uncommon. We run across it daily in our market analysis.
Yep. And I think of branded in terms of like cattle. So if you brand a cow, so whose cow that is, and they brand that title so that everybody knows this thing was in a flood. it's very important. Yeah.
Yeah.
So next we have auction brand issues. So it's branded that it's been in an auction, and that can certainly impact values. We'll talk about that a little bit deeper in a moment here. If it's been in an accident. And so here I do have a CARFAX pulled up here, Rod. It does have an accident on it. So I just wanted to show what that would look like to everyone who's watching. So you can see here that there is damage reported on this vehicle. And if we scroll down to where it shows what the damage was, it actually shows you that it was minor instead of moderate or severe, and where the damage was, a little picture of where the damage was on the car. AutoCheck has something similar as well. And you can imagine if a vehicle's been in a little fender bender versus it had severe frame damage or a severe accident, it's going to make a big difference in whether that vehicle, the value of it, and is it something that you might want to purchase. Going back to
Tory, and I just want to really point out that at a glance, when you look at a CARFAX or an AutoCheck report, you're going to see usually like some kind of green check mark or red check mark. That accident reported from the insurance company is one of the heaviest topics, of course, because we're talking about how these impact value. And so there is a big difference in the impact and value on a minor damage versus a major damage. And that is why you don't necessarily want to rule something out because you see a red, check mark instead of a green one. You can dig in and see if it's minor damage. And then you have to also take into consideration the age of the vehicle. So if you're looking at something that's 4 years old with 80,000 miles on it and it's had minor damage, the likelihood of there being minor damage on a 4-year-old 80,000 mile vehicle is not uncommon, right? There's all kind of accidents, parking lot damage. You just had a really rare random thing, Tory, where you smacked mirrors with somebody. Like there are so many small accidents. But if you're getting a vehicle with a pre-owned vehicle with 15,000 miles on it and it's only a year old, maybe that's a bigger deal to you. It might impact the values a little bit more. So the minor versus major and the age of the vehicle are major variables when you're talking about how they're impacting the values.
And another thing to add here, Rod, is this isn't bulletproof in terms of knowing everything that has happened with the car in terms of an accident. They get their data from insurance companies, from states, from, they got 100+ sources of data.
They claim like 100 and something thousand sources of data points. So
I didn't realize that. That's
what CARFAX website says. So
that's impressive. And I guess it doesn't really surprise me, but if I back into my mailbox and I have to replace my back bumper and get it painted, and it's not reported, and an accident is not reported to the insurance company, not everything gets called, but they do everything that they can. If there's data out there where a accident's tied to a VIN, they're going to grab it and let you know about it.
There's an argument to be made with smaller damage that you're better off to pay for it yourself, because by the time you factor in the depreciation to your vehicle and the possible increase in insurance rates, especially if you have younger drivers, sometimes you're better off just take the hit and pay the $1,500 and fix it yourself.
Right. So, I mean, if you have $1,000 deductible and it's going to cost you $1,500, you go, well, it's still $500 more, whatever. No, that $500 is easily going to be a depreciation.
You lost that in depreciation. Yeah.
So it also tells open recalls. This one wouldn't necessarily always impact value either, but it is cool that it's going to tell you, hey, this has a recall that has not been done on this vehicle. You should know that, if you buy this vehicle, you might need to take it immediately to the dealership and get work done and wait.
Or it may be a Tesla and it's completely silly because it's a software download.
I know. That's what has been so funny watching the recalls on Teslas come over.
Yeah.
It's like 200,000 vehicles recalled. Yeah, they did it over the update, and now it's done.
Yeah.
So then we have insurance loss and transfer, and so the branded title of the total loss. Oh, what's the term? It's just slipped my mind. Not rebuilt, but
for a total loss.
Yeah, for the total loss.
That'd be a salvage title, right?
Salvage. That's what I was looking for. Salvage. So before it becomes a salvage title, if you were buying a vehicle, the insurance company has reported the total loss on that vehicle before the title goes through the process of being branded. So that's one more check. An odometer check. This one's huge. So every time this is coming into the dealership, and for an EV, this doesn't matter, but for ICE vehicles, internal combustion, you go and you get your emissions done everywhere where they're logging odometer, or if the vehicle is sold, if it was sold with 20, with 80,000 miles, and now all of a sudden it's showing that it has 60, there's a problem. And that obviously can,
well, odometer tampering back in the 70s was just normal and customary. I mean,
well, they would literally just roll it back because it was a dial. Yeah.
70s and 80s, it was, and before, I'm sure. So,
and this one, it'll show if it's certified pre-owned is a new thing that they've added. It'll give service and repair history, and then additional information on it. Like, for instance, is there a lien on the vehicle? And you can see this one does show that there's events reported. A lien is reported. There's a loan on this car.
This is super important for private party sales. If you're dealing with a dealership, you're probably not going to have to worry about this. But if you're doing a private party sale, and there's payoffs, this is important stuff. You could really get yourself in a pinch here.
So it would be great to be able to say, that your history report is either green, yellow, or red, but it's not that clear cut. It's almost like, how much does this affect value? It depends. It depends, because if you have a branded title, a salvage title, wow, steer clear, stay away. If you've got a bonded title, so a bonded title means that somebody lost the title and nobody was there to sign for it, and they went through a legal procedure to have the title rebuilt, or reprinted, reissued, and assigned to you without the person who was on the title being present. And so, but that's risky. So certainly there is a consideration there. It's risky, it's legal, but it doesn't have anywhere near the effect of the other branded titles, Lemons and Salvage and Rebuilt. So it really just depends.
And not only does it depend, on the things that we've just covered here, there are other variables that it depends on. For example, what is the supply and demand on the vehicle that you're looking at? Because if you look at a lot of the Teslas and a lot of the EVs that we're looking at, this time 18 months ago, there was a 9, 10, 14-day supply. That same model today may have a 60, a 58 or 60-day supply. So when there was a 14-day supply, a minor damage on an accident report really didn't have a huge impact. If you could inspect the vehicle, ensure that it was repaired properly, there's really not much, maybe a $500 or 5% or 10%. You fast forward to a market where there's 100 or 90 of these models available in a 60 or 90-day supply, and people can be choosier, and you have to get more aggressive, and your value is impacted significantly more when there's a greater supply. And if you've been on if you listen to our other podcast, we're in early 2024, and we're seeing a real major depreciation in values due to a lot of the factors that we've talked about. But so it's not just the vehicle history report, it's the specific vehicle that you are looking at.
Yep. And just to scroll down through this, and we're winding up here, I'll show you guys the rest of this AutoCheck report so you can see a little bit more of the granularity. For instance, it's showing every time that it was registered, every time the title has changed hands. If the title had to be, like, let's just say it was lost and it had to be a certified reissue, that's not a branding, but it would show here that it was a certified copy of it was reissued if that had happened. And you can see, the data source, if it was the motor vehicle department, if it was an independent repair center with a vehicle service. So it goes through all the line items of what has happened with this vehicle. And so that's pretty much it for the basics of a vehicle history report. And again, we wish that there was some kind of a really clear-cut answer to how much would this impact the value of a car, but it depends. And that's one of the things that whenever we are allowing a car to be placed on our site as an auction, we're very protective about that. Auctions give this transparency, additional pictures and real transparency as to what you're getting over like a marketplace, where people might even do the opposite and go the extra mile to try to hide something. We're being very transparent and opening, all of the doors and windows and showing everything so that people know exactly what they're getting. We're watching for these values. And if you have any questions about this, obviously you can reach out to us. Go to evbids.com and you can reach out there. Phone number, email at the bottom of the page. Rod, anything else to add before we close up?
Yeah, just kind of like to summarize that, again, the age of the vehicle has a significant impact on how much that vehicle history report is going to impact that value. If you're looking at an older vehicle, and it's got minor damage, there's not going to be, as much of a depreciation hit as a newer vehicle. And then one other factor to take into consideration is what it's worth to you. If you're buying a vehicle and you're the kind of person that's going to keep this thing for 10 years, and you've inspected it and it's mechanically sound, then that depreciation is just a good deal for you, and it's not going to come back to hurt you. However, if you're the kind of person that gets a new vehicle every 18 months or every 2 years, then a significant depreciation due to an accident is going to have a more significant impact. So there's people that say $300 to $500 per vehicle is the depreciation amount. There's some that say up to 25 to 30%. Unfortunately, we can't give you an ironclad, this is what minor damage and major damage impact. It really is a case-by-case scenario. And as we always like to say, on the EV Bids podcast, the sale happens when value exceeds the price. And it is your job to evaluate that value and what it's worth to you and compare that to the price. And as Tory just said, we love this stuff. We love talking about it. We love analyzing the market. And we're always here and happy to have a conversation with you.
Yep.
So
age,
it just depends.
Yeah, it depends. It's so funny. I have a meme of that, and it just goes into this serious answer in a question. It's like, what if I told you it depends? it's like, I'm not doing it justice, but so supply and demand impacts how much of a value tarnish on a vehicle history report has, and the age of the vehicle.
Age.
Yep. So 2 things
Yep.
there.
And the use of the vehicle. Again, if you're buying this thing, you're a blue collar guy and you're buying this as a work truck and you're going to keep it and beat the brakes off of it for the next 5 years and drive it till the wheels fall off, you know what? It's not going to really matter.
Yep.
If you're Mr. Meticulous and every little thing that's not perfect is going to bother you, then it's probably best to wait and look for a clean vehicle history report.
Definitely. Well, all right. That's it on how vehicle history reports, what are they and how do they impact value? Appreciate you guys joining us today. For Rod Stuckey, I'm Tory Hornsby with EV Bids, and we'll see you next time.
See you.